President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in his inaugural address on May 29, announced an end to the controversial fuel subsidy removal in his address, and that generated a lot of controversy with respect to, is it the right time or the wrong time for such announcement to be made? Is the government in its first address sensitive enough to the plights of Nigerians with respect to removal of fuel subsidy, considering that Nigeria is a monoproduct economy? The entire of our economy is built around the oil and gas sector. Whichever way you look at it, it's just a matter of time subsidy will come to an end, because government cannot continue to subsidize the sector at the detriment of other sector, and at the same time government cannot be enriching select few individuals at the expense of all Nigerians. So on one hand, I'm in favor of the removal of subsidy on petroleum products. Don't forget that subsidy has been removed on diesel, subsidy has been removed on kerosene, and subsidy has been removed on AGO, which is aviation fuel. However, it's only on PMS that we have not removed subsidy. So it's very, very important for us to balance it out so that we can cut a lot of wastages, reduce the corruption that has affected that sector. However, the area which I disagree with the government is the issue of timing. Now, when the president made such pronouncement in his inaugural speech without engaging critical stakeholder before coming up with that policy decision, it will definitely cause a dislocation, and we all witness the dislocation it caused. For example, it was said that subsidy payment have been made till the end, provisions have been made for subsidy payment until the end of June. Now, by May 29, when the president made that announcement, the following day, I think 2 days or thereabout later, NNPC increased their own price. NNPC, which happens to be national player in the oil and gas sector, was the first to change its prices. So you ask, the money that has been budgeted for the month of June, what happened to such money? Two, in a sense, another factor is that sudden announcement created an imbalance because people are not fully prepared for it. For example, if government says by June 15 we are going to remove subsidy, and Nigerians will begin to make preparations towards the removal of subsidy. So the stopgap measure created a lot of dislocation, particularly when it comes to cost of living and the standard of living. And the cost of transportation skyrocketed, which invariably affect the cost of goods and services, because transporting these goods and services and the farm produce from the rural area to the urban center involve transportation, and that cost will be factored into whatever the selling price the various retailers or wholesalers are selling their product. So invariably, the inflation situation which we have got worsened. We're already experiencing double-digit inflation. That worsened that particular situation. So it was after a speech that the president said, okay, we engage with stakeholders, engage with. One would have thought that the president would have waited for the inauguration of the National Assembly, and the principal officer of the National Assembly will have emerged, and the presidency will have engaged with the National Assembly, engaged with other critical stakeholders like traditional rulers, which they have done, governors across the state of the Federation, in order to look at how to cushion the effect of the subsidy removal. Well, there's nothing anybody can do. The subsidy has been removed. But we'll be interested in government knowing what happens to the money that has been budgeted for the month of June. Payments have been made for the month of June because there are budgetary allocations for that by the last administration. So who are those? What we would like to know what happens between May 29 and June 30th, to know that 1 month window. Who are those that have benefited from the payment, from subsidy payment, that didn't deliver the products to Nigeria? True. It's also for government to look at ways in which, in fact, to set up a panel of inquiry into that particular sector. Who are those that have been making money out of Nigeria? Because one of the fallout of the removal of subsidies that we discovered that daily consumption dropped from 60 million to 13 million. Daily consumption dropped from 16 million to 13 million. So who are those that have been benefiting from the 47 million barrels per day subsidy? We need to know about that. Because if Nigerians are making sacrifices, they need to know who are those that have exploited the system at the detriment of other Nigerians. That's another area. And then the third area is, what are the cushioning effect that government wants to put in? Now, government usually talked about, okay, we increase salary of workers. But how many workers do federal government employ? How many workers do state government employ? Majority of Nigerians are self-employed, or they are small and medium scales enterprise. So if you increase the salaries of the civil servant and public servant, which is not up to 40% of the entire labor force, it's not even up to 30% of the entire labor force in the country. That means about 70% are not within the safety net of whatever you are going to do with respect to increase in minimum wage. Do the states even have the capacity to pay that minimum wage? So even if you pay the minimum wage, if you don't reduce the cost of living, if you still have double-digit inflation, we are still back to square one. It's just a cycle. You move from recession to depression. That's the cycle. Instead of the economy to rebound, we are just in a cycle of stagnation, moving from recession to depression, depression back to recession, recession back to depression. That has been what has characterized our economy. So government needs to come up with a comprehensive economic plan that will address the double-digit inflation that we have, the cost of living, and the standard of living. I don't have you use 500, and one of those areas is to look at the value, the exchange rate of dollar to a naira. For example, if the value of naira, if naira should appreciate, and then the cost of importing goods and services um, will be better, and then the trading of naira, exporting, Nigerians also will gain more money exporting goods and services outside the shores of Nigeria. So these are areas in which government needs to really work out and to really look out in addressing this particular issue of subsidy, which has been a hydra-headed problem, and which the Tinubu administration felt in its wisdom that it can be dealt with a policy statement from the inaugural speech.